we are live streaming, and there is a link on NYC Engage, and we will make sure that it gets on our website shortly. But I think with it is working from NYC Engage, so I believe that we can start. With that, I will say good afternoon and Happy New Year, and welcome to the New York City Planning Commission review session for Monday, January 3rd, 2022. Before we begin the agenda, we have some remarks from the chair.
Good afternoon, everyone, and Happy New Year. First, I did want to just welcome to the commission our new commissioner, Leah Goodridge, who you've all waved at. I assured her that you all were a very congenial group, as you can see from the hand waving. And we look forward to the day that we can all get together again to have a proper welcome to you. But if you want to just introduce yourself to this group, that would be fine.
Hi, good afternoon. It's really a pleasure to virtually meet everyone. I'm very excited to join the commission. A little bit about me. I've been a tenants' rights attorney for the last decade and really care a lot about affordable housing. I previously was on the New York City Rent Guidelines Board and left the board to join the commission. And I'm just really excited to contribute to the conversation. So it's a pleasure to meet everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I assure you this will be much calmer, even at its wildest, than the rent. So this will be a piece of cake for you.
Be careful what you say, Chair Lamont.
So I had a couple of other things I just wanted to note. As you all know, the passing of really two giants in planning last month, and I thought that I needed to just pay homage to them. One is Don Elliott, who served as chairman of the City Planning Commission from the late 60s to the early 70s. He left an outsized mark on this body, on the Department of City Planning and the City of New York. Among the many things that we would note about Don Elliott, I'll just mention a few. Although under Don, the plan for New York City, which was a master planning document, was completed. And while it demonstrated that one could think comprehensively about the city, which people are talking about right now, it also showed how truly challenging that such efforts are, as some of the sections of that document were outdated at the time of its publication, but that he oversaw its completion, and it was really a tome, is really no small feat. That document today sells for top dollar on eBay. Don Elliott was also responsible for the establishment of a number of the special zoning districts that we still have in our zoning text. And he demonstrated a steadfast commitment to our central business districts. We also really owe him a debt for elevating the importance of urban design in our planning work. The second person that I want to note is Alex Garvin, who, as you all know, was a former city planning commissioner, as well as a prior employee of the department and of the city, along with many other roles that he had. Not only was Alex a planner, but he was an author, an architect, and an educator. And he leaves an imprint on New York City and many other cities. He worked really closely with Mayor Bloomberg in directing the planning of the former World Trade Center site through the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation. He also consulted a variety of cities on urban development, and he wrote a number of books on cities and planning. He leaves a legion of former students who really carry on his strong belief in dense, diverse cities with a strong public realm. So I just thought we needed to honor both of them in their passing in the month of December of last year. Okay, Ryan.
So the first item on our agenda is a certification of zoning map and zoning text amendments, special permit acquisition and disposition of city-owned property in Manhattan Community District 4. Our presenter is Andy Cantu.
Thanks, Ryan. Good afternoon, commissioners. Can we go to slide 2, please? So this is the LIRIO. The Department of Housing Preservation and Development, HPD, is requesting a series of actions to facilitate a 100% affordable residential development at 806 9th Avenue in the Hell's Kitchen Clinton neighborhood of Manhattan Community District 4. The actions being sought include a zoning map amendment, a zoning text amendment, a zoning special permit, disposition of city-owned property, and acquisition of city-owned property. And I'll go into greater detail on each of these in a little bit. Next slide. But before I do, I just want to quickly summarize the proposed building program. The project will include a little over 92,000 square feet of residential floor area, representing approximately 111 permanently affordable units, including a mix of studios, 1 and 2 bedroom units. 44 of those units will be affordable to households earning up to 80% AMI. 67 will be set aside for formerly unhoused individuals and families, 59 of which will be supportive housing. 1,500 square feet will be dedicated to tenant support services, including on-site case management and programming. The development will also include over 37,000 square feet of commercial floor area, approximately 30,000 of which will be used for expansion space for the MTA, 7,000 square feet of ground floor retail, and 15 covered parking spaces for use by MTA emergency vehicles. Next slide, please. Zooming out a little bit, the project area is located within the preservation area subdistrict of the Special Clinton District on the block bounded by 8th and 9th Avenues between West 53rd and West 54th Streets. Outlined in the red dashed line is the development site, and the black dotted line indicates the rezoning area. In 1974, the CPC established the Special Clinton District, a primary goal for which included strengthening the residential character of the community. The preservation area subdistrict was specifically called out as an appropriate place to encourage the development of mid-rise residential buildings. Land uses in the surrounding area are highly diverse and include 4 to 6 story walk-up tenements, many with ground floor retail along the avenues, multifamily elevator buildings along the mid-blocks ranging from 6 to 23 stories, large commercial office buildings, especially to the east across 8th Avenue, and a small number of institutional uses such as the Midtown Community Court and the NYPD 18th Precinct, which are located within the rezoning area. Zoning districts in the surrounding area include R8 residential districts, C15, C62, and C64 commercial districts, as well as the special Midtown district located to the east across 8th Avenue. The area is well served by public transit with subways within a half mile, including the 1, ACE, NRQW, and BD trains. Multiple bus routes and city bike stations are located within walking distance of the project area, and Central Park is located 5 blocks to the north. Next slide. A little bit of background on the site. Back in 2009, as part of the Western Rail Yard rezoning, HPD obtained UDAP designation and disposition authority for 2 city-owned sites, including the parking lot portion of the development site. And the city committed to building affordable housing on the parking lot, as well as on another DEP's own site at 705 10th Avenue. After a competitive RFP process, development sponsors have been selected by HPD, and the DEP site is the subject of a separate land use application. Next slide. The development site itself is an approximately 92,000 square foot zoning lot fronting on 9th Avenue with a through lot portion extending between 53rd and 54th Streets. The lot contains the 3 to 5 story New York City Transit Rail Control Center and Power Control Center, which contains about 181,000 square feet of floor area. Completed in 1997, the Control Center is a hugely important piece of city infrastructure. It's the nerve center of New York City Transit's rapid transit operations, housing an around-the-clock team observing train movements throughout the entire system, coordinating service, monitoring field conditions, and directing emergency responses. The 22,379 square foot surface parking lot at the corner of 9th Avenue and West 54th Street is currently used to house MTA response vehicles and is where the proposed building would be developed. Next slide. The entirety of the project area is located within the preservation area subdistrict of the Special Clinton District and is zone R8, with the C15 commercial overlay mapped along the 9th Avenue frontage to a depth of 150 feet, then extends south of the center line of the block, stopping 150 feet west of 8th Avenue. Again, the rezoning area is the black dotted line, and the development site is the dashed red line. As modified by the preservation area regulations, the maximum FAR for residential and community facility uses here is 4.2. The C15 district permits commercial uses up to an FAR of 2. Preservation area regulations significantly modify the underlying zoning rules for height, setback, and lot coverage, as described in greater detail here on the slide. In R8 districts, permitted uses are limited to residential and community facility uses. C15 districts also permit commercial uses in use groups 5 and 6, which include local retail and services and transient hotels. Next slide. The applicant, in order to facilitate the proposed development, is requesting a zoning map amendment from the existing R8 and R8 with the C15 commercial overlay to a C62 zoning district. The increased commercial FAR allowance from 2 to 4.2 would allow for commercial development on the parking lot site. Currently, the existing New York City Transit facility uses up all of the available commercial floor area on the zoning lot, and the map amendment would bring the development site as well as 3 other overbuilt lots into compliance with zoning. C62 districts allow for an expanded range of commercial uses, including use group 12C commercial service establishments. This change would bring the R8 portion of the development site and the NYPD and Midtown Community Court sites into conformance with zoning. C62 districts allow commercial uses to occupy space above the first story in mixed-use buildings, which is not the case in C1 districts. I'll note that given the modifications that the preservation area places on the underlying zoning, this map amendment would not result in any changes to maximum FAR, height, setback, lot coverage, or yard regulations. Next slide, please. This is a little bit of a closer look at the project area. Also included in the rezoning area are the landmarked Midtown Community Court, just to the east of the development site, the NYPD building east of that, and all or parts of 4 privately owned lots. Next slide, please. Action 2 is an amendment to the Special Clinton District text, which would create a new special permit allowing waivers to bulk regulations in the preservation area, except FAR. In order to qualify for the new special permit, the text amendment adds 3 conditions. The zoning lot must be at least 40,000 square feet. It must front on a wide street, and it must contain existing public infrastructure. This text amendment was tailored to apply to 2 sites only, this MTA site and the DEP's own site I mentioned earlier. The amendment also creates 4 findings for the special permit and consolidates the existing height and setback waiver into a single section and zoning resolution. Next slide, please. Action 3 is a special permit to waive height, setback, lot coverage, and landscaped open area requirements. On your right is a diagram highlighting the various height and setback waiver areas. In various places, the proposed development, which is slated to be 99 feet tall, exceeds the maximum base and maximum building heights. The height and setback waiver contains 1 condition. The building cannot exceed 115 feet in height within 100 feet of a wide street, or 99 feet in height beyond 100 feet of a wide street, and the proposed development does meet this condition. In order to grant the special permit, the CPC must find that the distribution of bulk permits adequate access to light and air to surrounding streets and properties. Next slide, please. Next is the lot coverage waiver. The preservation area regulations permit 70% lot coverage within 100 feet of a wide street and 60% lot coverage beyond that. The proposed development includes 100% lot coverage within 100 feet of 9th Avenue and 93% lot coverage beyond that. The diagram on your right is a little bit difficult to interpret, but essentially there are 2 factors that make strict compliance with the lot coverage rules unfeasible. The first is the presence of the existing MTA building, and the second is the need for MTA expansion space in the proposed development. Ordinarily, ground floor commercial space is considered a permitted obstruction and not counted towards lot coverage. But in this case, because the office space would need to be located on the second story, it does count as lot coverage. Next slide, please. The third component of the special permit is the waiver to landscaped open area requirements. Preservation area regulations require that 20% of the zoning lot be set aside as landscaped open area for residents. Because the MTA building takes up so much of the zoning lot, compliance with this requirement would essentially make any development on the parking lot site unfeasible. The applicant is proposing to include 7,361 square feet of landscaped open area on an interior terrace and rooftop of the proposed development, which will be open to all residents. And this corresponds to 33% of lot area if we exclude the portion of the zoning lot containing the MTA building. Next slide, please. As discussed previously, the text amendment adds the ability to waive lot coverage and landscape open area regulations, incorporating 3 conditions and 4 findings. 3 conditions, as I mentioned, have been met, and in order to grant the special permit, the commission must make 4 findings related to light and air, practical difficulties in complying with bulk regulations, and other constraints which are listed here on the slide. Next slide. The 4th and 5th actions are disposition and acquisition of city-owned property. As part of the arrangement between HPD, the MTA, and the project sponsor, 35,518 square feet of excess development rights pertinent to the MTA building will be disposed of and utilized in the proposed development. In addition, the city will acquire 30,466 square feet of floor area in the cellar, first and second floors of the proposed development. And upon completion of the project, this space will be leased to New York City Transit to expand the office footprint of the control center building. The proposed development will also include 15 off-street below-grade parking spaces for MTA vehicles. Next slide. So to summarize, HPD is requesting 5 actions, including map and text amendments, special permit, and acquisition and disposition of city-owned property to facilitate the development of a 9-story mixed-use building containing 111 permanently affordable homes and 30,000 square feet of office space. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Andy, for that. Are there questions from the commission? Okay. Commissioner Ramprasad?
Yes, thank you, Andrew, for that presentation. I just have 2 quick questions. Do you know the terms of the lease with the MTA? And also, is it possible to get plans of the building, of the proposed development?
I'm going to have HPD respond to the first question about the terms of the lease. We have a first floor plan, illustrative plan that I believe we can send you, but I'll have to check with HPD to get the other floor plans.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Levin.
Yes, Andy, thank you for the presentation. As I'm sure you're aware, Community Board 4 has some pretty strong opinions about this particular project. And as we're only certifying it today, this is not the place to engage in substantive considerations of those, but they have 2 pretty strong letters on their website, both about the affordable housing program that's proposed here and about the zoning mechanisms that are really the ones that are of our main concern. On the housing program, and this is one actually that I happen to know a whole lot about because it goes back to my time leading the Land Use Committee of Community Board 4. The housing program here was committed to as a result of the Western Rail Yards rezoning when the hunt was on for sites that could be used to meet the affordable housing needs of the neighborhood. It's really, Board 4 has been an early champion of the anti-gentrification effects of the special, and the special district really stands to fight against gentrification that's been sweeping across that neighborhood since the special district was formed. And the issue here is not about, this site was targeted for moderate and middle income housing, and that because low income housing was being produced in abundance in other areas of the district. So in 2009, this was specifically negotiated in the points of agreement to be for moderate and middle income housing. So I think we're certainly going to hear from Board 4 about that. And I hope HPD will be able to recognizing that that's not a use issue, but it's certainly an important part of this path. And the other one is that the community board is a fierce guardian of the protective measures of the zoning and are deeply concerned about the notion of rezoning an entire block for the MTA facility has been there for a long time with happily being non-complying, and nothing says it really has to be rezoned. And also, I think the community board is concerned about the amount of office space that's being given to the MTA, because that again wasn't part of the MTA deal. And then finally, the notion of creating a special permit to accomplish what might be accomplished through ways that don't mean poking a hole in the zoning text that has been so effective in preserving this district. So no need to respond, but I hope we can have a more robust discussion about that. And Board 4 will certainly formalize their comments to us as part of the ULURP process, but I think that's what's coming at us. And look forward to talking about it after the
HPD will definitely be prepared to respond to those at the public hearing. I'll just note from the department's perspective, based on very extensive internal discussion and review, we believe that the proposed land use actions are an appropriate set of actions to pursue and are necessary to facilitate the proposed project. Specifically, like I mentioned, the text as drafted only narrowly applies to 2 sites subject to the Western Rail Yards POA. And we believe that the map change specifically is necessary to support the development program, given the utilization of the FAR by the MTA building. And I'll also note that the C62 district does not change the underlying maximum FAR height, setback, or lot coverage regulations compared to the underlying R8 zoning.
Thank you. Well, I'll look forward to discussing it further after we've heard from Board 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And I will just one other note, Commissioner Levin. I know that the community board had suggested maybe an alternative route here would be a mayoral zoning override, but one is we very strenuously try to guard the circumstances in which those are used, aren't certain that it could be used here, and also would just note that that is something that the community board has in other instances very much resisted. So I think it's a challenge to find a way to accomplish all of this if you're accepting that this is the program that is today what the city wants to do here, in doing it another way. So we will certainly have further discussions on this. So thank you for so succinctly, giving the commission an indication of the community board's concerns. Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi, yes, thank you. Perhaps these are smaller comments, noting the inability to meet the landscape and open space requirements. I do notice that, at least in the rendering, that there are street trees and wondered, to what extent there are landscape requirements and requirements for street trees, and other efforts to sort of soften the street.
Great, thanks for your question. I'll have to get back to you on sort of the detailed technical answer, but I believe street trees are required every 25 feet. But I'll get back to you on the number of trees that will be provided.
Okay, and then, I did note also in the rendering, the city bike stuff. Is there city bike in front of this building right now, or is that proposed?
I'm not quite sure, but I can get back to you on that. Okay. I believe that's just illustrative.
Okay, thank you.
But there are city bike stations within a short distance of the zoning lot.
Just want to know how accurate the rendering is. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Are there any additional questions from the commission? Okay, then if not, this is certified. Thank you very much, Andy.
Thanks.
The second item on our agenda is a certification of a special permit in Manhattan Community District 8. Our presenter is Aska Mohibin.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a private application by 3 East 89th Holding LLC requesting a 74-711 special permit. The special permit would waive use and bulk regulations applicable to the site to facilitate the conversion, restoration, and enlargement of the existing building into a commercial art gallery and residence at 3 East 89th Street in Carnegie Hill, Community District 8, Manhattan. Next slide, please. The development site is located on East 89th Street between 5th and Madison Avenues within the Carnegie Hill Historic District. The development site is split between an R10 zoning district within the Special Park Improvement District and an R8B zoning district. The R10 zoning district, shown here in the shaded portion of the lot closest to the park, allows high-density residential and commercial facility development up to 10 FAR, but the Park Improvement District limits building height to 19 stories or 210 feet and mandates street wall continuity. The R8B portion mapped along the mid The area is served by the East 86th Street subway station, located a few blocks southeast on Lexington Avenue, providing access to the 4, 5, and 6 trains. The northbound and southbound M1, M2, M3, and M4 buses run along 5th and Madison Avenues. Next slide, please. This aerial image provides a visual context of the surrounding area. The existing buildings on this development site are outlined in a dashed red line. The area is characterized by a mix of residential buildings between 4 and 38 stories. Institutional uses such as schools, houses of worship, and cultural institutions, as well as its proximity to Central Park. Notable landmarks in the area include the Guggenheim Museum and the Andrew Carnegie Mansion, which houses the Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum. Next slide, please. The development site, highlighted in yellow on the image to the left, consists of a single zoning lot with a 27-foot frontage on 5th Avenue and 104-foot frontage on East 89th Street. It has a total lot area of about 13,300 square feet and consists of 3 tax lots: 1083 Fifth Avenue on Lot 4, 3 East 89th Street on Lot 5, and 5-7 East 89th Street on Lot 7. Proposed development in this application is limited to 3 East 89th Street, also known as a project site, outlined in both figures with a dashed red line. Next slide, please. Here you can see the tax lot components of the zoning lot. All 3 tax lots are improved with buildings predating zoning resolution. 3 East 89th Street is shown here in red. 1083 Fifth Avenue, shown in blue, was the first built in 1902 as a 6-story residence. 3 East 89th Street in red was built in 1915 as a 5-story addition to 1083 Fifth Avenue. In 1940, both buildings were donated to the National Academy of Design to be used as their headquarters. The third site at 5-7 East 89th Street was built in 1959 as a 2-story addition for the Academy, and all 3 buildings were interconnected. The National Academy of Design sold all 3 buildings in 2018 to separate buyers. The new owner of 1083 Fifth Avenue obtained building permits in 2019 for residential use and a 7th-floor addition, which is currently under construction. The new owner of 5-7 East 89th Street has not pursued any approvals, but is understood to be planning to utilize the building as a museum. 3 East 89th Street, the subject of this application, is seeking a special permit to allow a commercial art gallery and residential addition on the site. Next slide, please. The existing structure at 3 East 89th Street is a 5-story building containing approximately 13,600 square feet of floor area. It is approved to be used as a non-commercial art gallery. The 4,000 square foot lot is mapped with R8B on the eastern half and R10 and the Special Park Improvement District on the western half. The building contributes to the expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to convert, enlarge, and restore the existing building. They first intend to convert the existing floors 1 through 5 of the building for use as a commercial art gallery. The applicant will later pursue the enlargement, comprising a penthouse addition and about 5,300 square feet of new floor area. Once enlarged, floors 1 through 3 would be used for a use group 6 commercial art gallery, and floors 4 through 6 will be used as a use group 2 residence. Next slide. The floor plans of the proposed enlargement show how the approximately 5,300 square foot addition is distributed on each floor throughout the building. The proposed enlargement includes a new mezzanine on the second floor, infill on the rear and east side of the building on the second and third floors, infill on the east side of the building on the fourth floor, an enlargement of the fifth floor to the full extent of the enlarged fourth floor, and a penthouse addition on the sixth floor. Next slide, please. Here's the enlargement in section. The additional floor area being added on floors 2 through 5 is shown to be achieved primarily through infill of the existing building. The partial 6th floor penthouse is the only component of the new enlargement that results in additional height. The penthouse set back about 56 feet from the front lot line, significantly limiting visibility from the street. Next slide. The applicant is requesting a special permit pursuant to ZR section 74.711 to modify use and bulk requirements to facilitate the conversion and enlargement of the building. The requested use and bulk waivers will allow a partial commercial art gallery and waivers to height, distance between buildings, and rear yard requirements. Next slide, please. A use waiver will allow a commercial art gallery on floors 1 through 5 of the existing building. The applicant intends to use the existing building as a commercial art gallery until they can move forward with the proposed enlargement. Once enlarged, the commercial art gallery will be located on floors 1 through 3, and the remaining floors 4 through 6 will be used as a residence. Next slide, please. The RIB portion of the lot, highlighted here in yellow, is subject to a maximum building height of 75 feet. The existing building rises to a height of about 80 feet. With the addition of the 6th-floor penthouse, the enlarged building will reach a height of approximately 95 feet, requiring a waiver of the applicable height regulations. Next slide, please. Both the R8B and R10 districts limit the height for a building with the street wall less than 45 feet in width to a maximum of 60 feet. 3 East 89th has a street wall of 40 feet and requires a waiver of the applicable height regulations to reach the proposed height of about 95 feet. Next slide, please. This section shows the bulk of the requested height waiver to enable the 6th-floor penthouse addition, which is set back about 56 feet from the street line. The 2 height waivers will result in a 15-foot increase in building height above the existing non-complying building height of about 80 feet. Next slide, please. A waiver of the 30-foot rear yard requirement is also requested to enable the proposed enlargement. Next slide. As seen in Axon on the left, the existing building already extends to the rear lot line on the 1st floor. It provides a 10-foot rear yard setback highlighted in pink on floors 2 through 5. The Axon on the right shows how the waiver will enable the proposed infill on the rear and east sides of the building, extending to the rear lot line on floors 2 through 5. The waiver will also allow a 10-foot rear yard setback highlighted in pink for the 6th-floor penthouse. Next slide. The requested rear yard waiver will result in a structure that is consistent with surrounding development patterns and is expected to have minimal adverse effects on the surrounding structures and open space in terms of access to light and air. Specifically, 1080 Fifth Avenue to the west has an L-shaped inner courtyard highlighted here in yellow that provides separation, light, and air to this building. To the north, a 1-story proportion of the Church of Heavenly Rest abuts the rear boundary of the project site, highlighted here in yellow in orange, that provides separation, light, and air to the church windows. Also of note, the highlighted here in green is a 33-foot rear yard at 5-7 East 89th Street to the east. This area is subject to a light and air easement, which requires the area to remain an open, unobstructed area in perpetuity. It will therefore provide light and air for any legally required east-facing windows at 3 East 89th Street. Next slide, please. Lastly, the applicant is seeking a waiver of the minimum distance between buildings on a single zoning lot, which requires a 35-foot feet between a building wall and a legal window above an abutment. The waiver will facilitate the penthouse addition, which achieves approximately 31 feet of separation from the abutting building located at 1083 Fifth Avenue. Next slide, please. As you can see from this neighborhood character diagram, the proposed building will integrate well with the character of the East 89th Streetscape, presenting a modest bulk and scale that will not be out of place amongst its surrounds. The proposed 6-floor addition is set back significantly from the street, posing minimal effect in terms of scale, location, and access to light and air on adjoining properties. Next slide. Prior to the department's review, the Landmark Preservation Commission reviewed the proposal on account of its location in the expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District. A certificate of appropriateness was issued after LPC review. Through the LPC process, the applicant has agreed to complete extensive repair and restoration of the building pursuant to the approvals granted by LPC and as noted in the restrictive declaration. The agreed upon restoration to the front facade, west facade, and roof will be completed with the use change, while the remaining restoration work on the east facade is proposed to occur alongside the enlargement of the building. Next slide, please. Pursuant to Section 74.711, the City Planning Commission may permit waivers of use and bulk regulations, provided that certain conditions and findings are met. Per the conditions of the special permit, the applicant has provided a continuing maintenance plan and a certificate of appropriateness from LPC. To grant the special permit, the Commission must find that the requested bulk waivers present minimal adverse impacts on the surrounding structures and open space in terms of use, scale, location, and access to light and air. Next slide, please. In summary, the applicant is requesting a 74.711 special permit to modify certain use and bulk requirements to convert and enlarge an existing building to facilitate a 6-story mixed-use building with commercial art gallery and residential use. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you very much, Oscar. Are there questions from the commission? Oh, I see Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Oscar, for the presentation. I just wanted to clarify, post-enlargement, is the residential component of the building, would that continue to be attached to the museum as an accommodation to artists, or would that be a private residence?
So as they have described to us, there is plans to have a live-in residence program, live-in artist residence program, but the applicant confirmed in terms of if they will have a private residential space there as well, or just the live-in artist.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the commission? Okay, well, thank you so much, Oscar.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, this item is also certified. Thank you.
The third item on our agenda is a certification of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in the Bronx Community District 12. Presenting to the commission for the first time is Laura Davis.
Hi, good afternoon, commissioners. This is the 4541 Furman Avenue rezoning. Next slide, please. The applicant, the Markland 4551 LLC, seeks a zoning map amendment and zoning text amendment to facilitate the proposed development located at 4541 Furman Avenue in the Wakefield Eastchester neighborhood of Bronx Community District 12. The proposed development is a new mixed-use building with 150 units of affordable housing, community facility, and retail space. Next slide, please. This area map shows the larger local context surrounding the project area. The proposed development site, block 5084, lot 63, is located on an approximately 24,729 square foot parcel. The proposed development site has approximately 102 feet of frontage on White Plains Road and 193 feet of frontage on Furman Avenue. Planned uses in the immediate vicinity of the rezoning area include mixed use, commercial, and manufacturing uses. The project area is located in an M11 zoning district. The project area is surrounded by R7D with C24 overlays to the north, R6 with C22 overlays to the west, M11 to the east, and R5 to the south. The project area is located within a fresh zone. It should be noted that in 2019, the block to the north was rezoned from M11 to R7D with C24 overlay as a part of the 241st Street rezoning. This rezoning was intended to facilitate the development of a new mixed-use residential and commercial building. In 2021, new building permits were filed for an 11-story building with 251 dwelling units and approximately 24,000 square feet of commercial uses on the northern portion of the block. Additionally, the western portion of White Plains Road was rezoned in 2007 as a part of the Wakefield Eastchester rezoning. Next slide, please. Here's an aerial photo of the project area with the rezoning area highlighted in yellow and the proposed development site in purple. Besides the proposed development site, the remainder of the rezoning area includes several auto body shops, 1 to 2 family residences, parking lots, and vacant buildings. It should be noted that all residential buildings have 2 dwelling units each, and the residential units are legal non-conforming uses today. Photo 1 shows the rezoning area's frontage on White Plains Road. Here you can see the elevated subway line, auto body shops, and fenced-off parking lot. Photo 2 shows the rezoning area's frontage on Furman Avenue, which consists mostly of residential buildings. The project area is well served by public transportation, as it's served by the BXM11, BX39, and 16 bus routes, and several Westchester County B-Line bus routes. The Wakefield 241st Street number 2 train station is 1 block north, and then the Reed 2 and 5 train station is 1 block south of the rezoning area. The Wakefield station on Metro North Harlem line is 0.6 miles northwest, and the Mount Vernon East station on the New Haven line is 1.5 miles northeast. Next slide, please. Here are photos of the existing conditions of the site from various angles. The development site is currently unoccupied, and it's a 1-story light industrial warehouse building. Next slide, please. Here is an illustrative massing of the proposed development. The proposed development at 4541 Furman Avenue includes a new mixed-use building with approximately 136,544 square feet of floor area. The proposed development will contain 150 units of affordable housing pursuant to HPD's extremely low and low income affordability program. The units will include a mix of studio, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The proposed development is 1 single building with 2 segments as shown on the screen. Segment A has frontage on White Plains Road, and Segment B has frontage on Furman Avenue. Segment A is approximately 99 feet tall and 9 stories. Segment B is approximately 102 feet tall and 10 stories. There will be approximately 7,146 square feet of ground floor retail space in Segment A and 11,098 square feet of community facility space in Segment B. There will be 22 parking spaces provided, with the parking entrance located on Furman Avenue. Other building amenities include private outdoor recreation space located above the first floor and cellar in between building segments for tenants. Additionally, in the background of the proposed massing image, you can see the massing for the future development located a block to the north. As mentioned earlier, this is a part of the 2019 201st Street rezoning. Next slide, please. Here's the proposed development's elevation. On the left of the screen, you can see Segment B, which will be set at the street line and rise to a height of 95 feet. At 95 feet, a portion of the building would be set back 10 feet before rising to a final height of 102 feet or 10 stories. On Segment A, which would also be set at the street line and rise to a height of 89 feet. At 89 feet, a portion of the building would set back 10 feet before rising to a final height of 99 feet or 9 stories. Next slide, please. The first action I'll be discussing is the zoning map amendment. Shown here is the zoning change map with the existing zoning on the left and the proposed zoning on the right. The applicant is proposing a zoning map amendment to rezone from an M11 zoning district to an R7D and R7D C24 zoning district. The proposed zoning map district will be an extension of the R7D C24 zoning district mapped directly to the north. Given the rezoning area's frontage on Furman Avenue, which is across from a rail yard and not an active retail corridor, the C24 overlay is only proposed to the center line and western portion of the block. The proposed R7D zoning has a maximum residential and community facility FAR of 4.2. R7D inclusionary housing developments have a maximum FAR of 5.6. Buildings must have a base height of 60 to 85 feet and up to 95 feet for inclusionary projects. The overall height for R7D inclusionary developments is 110 feet, but developments with qualifying ground floors can rise an additional 5 feet in height. C24 districts are commercial overlay districts mapped within residential districts. When mapped in R6 through R10 districts, the maximum commercial FAR is 2.0. Commercial overlays mapped within R7D districts do require active ground floor uses. Next slide, please. The proposed zoning text amendment to zoning resolution appendix F would establish an MIH area, options 1 and 2, over the rezoning area. Accordingly, it will permit the applicant to develop the proposed development site in accordance with the MIH program. MIH option 1 requires 25% of residential floor area be provided as affordable units at an average of 60% of the area median income. MIH option 2 requires 30% of residential floor area be provided as affordable units at an average of 80% AMI. For both options 1 and 2, no units will be at a level exceeding 130% of the AMI. The applicant plans to provide permanently affordable units pursuant to MIH option 1. Under option 1, 38 of the 150 units will be permanently affordable at an average of 60% AMI. The remaining units would be for households with incomes at or below 80% of the AMI. Under option 2, 45 permanently affordable units will be required. It should be noted that in Bronx Community District 12, the median household income is $54,864. Next slide, please. The applicant is also proposing a zoning text amendment to Appendix 1 to extend the Transit Zone 1 to include the rezoning area and the remaining southern portion of Block 5084, which is not located within the rezoning area. The project area and southern half of Block 5084 are currently well served by public transit, with the Wakefield 201st Street subway station 1 block north of the proposed development site. The transit zone was recently extended over the previously mentioned 241st Street rezoning area to the north. As an M district, the transit zone was not established over the area. Now that the area is proposed to be a residential district, a transit zone can be extended here. In the transit zone, the provision of off-street parking spaces are optional for affordable dwelling units. The proposed extension of the transit zone would be immediately north, south, and east of the existing transit zone 1 boundary. The proposed zoning text would also encourage further transit-oriented development in the immediate vicinity of the Wakefield 201st Street subway station. Next slide, please. Once again, the applicant is seeking a zoning map amendment and 2 zoning text amendments to facilitate the proposed development. The approval of the land use actions will allow for the construction of 150 housing units, including 38 of permanently affordable units, retail and community facility space in an area located in close proximity to public transportation. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Laura. Are there any questions from the commission? Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi. I was trying to get a sense of the commercial context. I know you said that, per zoning that there's an active ground floor use that's required. But what's happening around there? Is there, it's hard to tell from the street view and because there's also, the overhead, the elevated line. So could you describe the area context?
Yeah, it is a commercial corridor, and when the applicant comes back, they can provide much more detail about the sites all around the proposed development site.
Okay, but I guess I go ahead with Commissioner Burney. I'm going to look up something. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Burney.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Laura. Yes, but when this comes back, could we perhaps see some floor plans of what the building looks like, and also some elevations? It looks like it's just the Amazon box that the building was delivered in. We'd like to know a little bit more about what's inside.
Yes.
And thirdly, be interesting to know, as a perennial issue with this type of development, what are they doing about acoustic separation for those units that are adjacent to the elevated rail?
Okay. Yes,
I'll
let you know.
Thank you. Commissioner Marin.
Good afternoon. So I think most of the questions and concerns that I had have been asked. The only one thing that I'd like to explore further is the open space, or the space between the 2 buildings and what that looks like. if that would be added to the list of floor plans, elevations, and other items, I would appreciate it.
Okay. Pass it on.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes, I just wanted to respond to my colleague, Commissioner Ortiz's question. This is, I don't live far from this area. The ground floor activity, Larissa, along White Plains Road, as it exists now, is relatively barren. First of all, that's, it previously has been industrial with some small retail presences there, but it is, as we speak, not much is going on there.
Thank you. Can I ask a follow-up question then?
Yes.
I would like some more understanding when this comes back on, what the plan is for the ground floor. What kinds of uses do they anticipate trying to accommodate, and whether they feel like there's sufficient demand for it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any further questions from the commission? Okay, thanks very much, Laura, for your first presentation. And this item is certified. Thank you.
Okay. The fourth item on our agenda is a certification of an acquisition in Brooklyn Community District 4. Our presenter is Alexander Patty Diaz.
I'm actually going to handle this one.
Oh, David. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Apologize to the
David
confusion.
Weisglass.
Good afternoon, commissioners. This application is an acquisition application for the Roundtable Senior Center. Next slide, please. The New York City Department for the Aging and the co-applicant, the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, are seeking acquisition approval for continued use of a DFTA neighborhood senior center. Next slide, please. The project area is in the Bushwick neighborhood of Brooklyn in Community District 4. Next slide, please. The project area is located at 1175 Gates Avenue, 1.5 blocks north of Broadway, with Bushwick Avenue to the south, Evergreen Avenue to the north, and Gates Avenue to the southeast. The surrounding area is mapped R6. Land uses within this immediate area include predominantly a variety of residential uses, such as 1 to 2 family row houses, multifamily walk-ups, multifamily elevator buildings, and mixed-use residential and commercial buildings, as well as open spaces. Next slide, please. The public facilities nearby include the Cristo Missionary Church, Palmetto Gardens, a 115-unit multifamily NYCHA housing facility, and some DOT school buildings, including PS 75, Maida Cordiella Elementary School, PS 299, Thomas Warren Field, and the Brooklyn High School for Law and Technology. The project area is serviced by Gates Avenue subway station, providing service to the J and Z trains, and that's located 2 blocks south on Broadway. There are 2 bus stops providing transportation access to the site, the B52 and the Q24. Next slide, please. The Roundtable Senior Center occupies the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors of the building at 1175 Gates, consisting of approximately 17,600 square feet of floor area in the existing building. The rest of the building is occupied by the LSS MNY Early Life Child Care Center, which is contracted by the Department of Education. Clientele of the Senior Center includes senior citizens 60 years of age or older. Most persons using the center arrive either on foot or via public transportation. Members, staff, and visitors enter the facility through the left side entrance at grade, located on Gates Avenue. Building is served by 2 sets of staircases. Elevators are located near the building's entrance, which accommodates members with wheelchairs or other physical disabilities. Next slide, please. The Roundtable Senior Center serves approximately 200 seniors per day, with services operating Monday through Friday between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. And holds a variety of activities, including meal service, case assistance, education, recreational opportunities, and health promotion and nutritional education. The 17,600 square foot space primarily consists of offices and recreation room and a senior lounge on the third floor, case management offices, a game room, a TV room, arts and crafts room, and a computer room on the fourth floor, and primarily a kitchen and dining area on the fifth floor, as shown here. Men's and women's restrooms are located on all three floors. Next slide, please. DFTA currently contracts with the nonprofit service provider Riseboro Community Partnership, who operates the facility. There are approximately 39 staff members serving this facility, including 32 that are senior center full-time staff, 6 who are consultants, and 1 part-time employee. Next slide, please. The applicant incorporated the following items on the scope of work based on feedback provided by the Department of City Planning. An exterior facade that's going to be free of graffiti and any other kind of paintwork that's unauthorized. DFTA is also exploring the addition of 1 or more trees, street trees outside the existing center and outside the vaults that are located on Gates Avenue, which can be seen here. And DFTA is also working to improve signage to the building entrance and other measures to make sure the entryway is more welcoming and incorporates more design guidance as provided by the department. Next slide, please. To facilitate the proposed project, an acquisition action approval of 17,600 square foot space within the 1175 Gates Avenue building is required for the continued use of this existing senior center. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, David. Are there any questions from the commission? Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you. David, do you know the proposed term of the lease in this case?
I don't have it at the top of, I don't have it in hand right now, but I can get that to you as soon as I can.
All right, well, here's my question. Because the text indicates that there were 2 consecutive 20-year lease agreements starting in 70 through 72. And then at the end of the second, there was a holdover, and then apparently a 5-year term, which has just ended. So I'd like to know, 1, why only the 5-year term after 2 20-year agreements, 2 consecutive 20-year agreements? And B, what is the proposed term for the instant lease?
I believe that this is another 5-year term. I'll check on that though and make sure that I get the correct answer.
Which just isn't long for a. It's not a long lease of any kind, but certainly not for a senior citizen facility. So I'd like to know what the story is behind those terms.
Understood. Thank you.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't have so much a question as I just wanted to make a comment and reflect on the work that the department and the commission has done over the years to ensure that as part of this process and discussion, the physical design issues both inside and outside of facilities for our seniors and our children, depending on the use, are now on the table before these things even get to us. So the fact that the presentation includes ideas and concepts that are being discussed to improve the sort of the physical entranceway and is really a amazing step in the right direction. So it's really just an acknowledgement of that. And I thank the staff because I'm sure that they're focused on that when they're having interagency discussions. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Commissioner Marin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So David, my concerns are also along the lines of Commissioner Knuckles and of course Commissioner Cirillo. One is that I know we had this discussion couple of years ago when we were talking about design and length of terms of leases, which was one of my concerns. And the response that we received from DCAS at the time, and I'm not saying that this is on the DCAS's purview, was that they were trying to shorten leases as a result of new buildings in neighborhoods with community facilities being developed, with the availability of those spaces being first offered to the older seniors and senior centers and daycares because of the technology and the upgrades to the services that may be in the building. So that was my understanding. So if we can get some clarification on that, that would be great. And then I also am concerned about the beautification of the space, because as Commissioner Knuckles has represented, 5 years is a short term, and it appears that at this point we're going for a 5-year term and looking at some redesign of some spaces, knowing that the 5 years, at the end of the 5 years, we may have spent good money, knowing that either the center is going to be moved or not moved. I'm just concerned about the 5 years in the beautification and what level of beautification happens to the space.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner Marine. We will certainly get answers to the question about what precisely the term is and then why the term is what it is. So we will get back to you on that. Commissioner Burney.
Yeah, thank you. Just along the same theme, really. I mean, just to echo Commissioner Cirilla's comment that it's very good news that the department staff are working to look at these issues as they come before us. But this really is a grim-looking building. If I was a senior approaching that building, I would be quite intimidated even to cross the threshold. So, and street trees and signage are all very well, but I do think the department should be encouraged to continue to work with DCAS to make some really more serious and radical improvements to that facade to make it more welcoming to the seniors. And hopefully we'll have a long enough lease to make that investment worthwhile.
Yeah, thank you. When we bring this back, it'd be a good time to talk about the discussions that we had with DCAS and where they are at that time. We may be further along in those conversations. So yes, thank you. Are there any additional questions from the commission on this? Okay, I don't see any. So this application is certified. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The fifth item on our agenda is a certification of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in Queens Community District 1. Our presenter is Kathy Coe.
Hello, good afternoon, Commission. This is 3501 Vernon Boulevard rezoning. Next slide, please. It's a private application in the Ravenswood neighborhood of Queens Community District 1 on the property located at 3501 Vernon Boulevard. And this application is for a zoning map amendment from an R5 zoning district to a special mixed use R7A district with an M14 manufacturing district and a zoning text amendment to establish an MIH or mandatory inclusionary housing area to facilitate a 9-story mixed use building containing residential, commercial, and light manufacturing uses. Next slide, please. The project area, which is outlined here in red, is just south of Astoria and north of Long Island City. And the project area has frontage on Vernon Boulevard and 35th Avenue and 9th Street. East of the project area are the NYCHA Ravenswood houses, and north of that are the Queensview co-ops. West of the project area is the Ravenswood Power Station, which is a cooling facility for Con Edison. And nearby schools include PS 76 and 2 charter schools, which are southeast of the project area, and the Long Island City High School, which is approximately a half-mile northeast of the project area. Open space in the area includes Rainey Park, which is 2 blocks northwest of the project area. And the project area is located in the transit zone and is well served by public transit. The 36th Avenue subway station with access to the elevated NW lines is located about 1 mile east of the project area, and the 21st Street Queensbridge subway station on the F line is about 1 mile southeast. Pedestrian access to Roosevelt Island is accessed by the 36th Avenue Bridge, which is 1 block south of the project area. And the area is served by the Q103, Q104, Q69, and Q100 bus lines. And the Astoria stop of the New York City Ferry is approximately 1 mile north of the project area with service to Long Island City, East 34th Street, and Wall Street. Next slide, please. The project area is in an R5 zoning district, which was mapped in 1961. And the surrounding area consists of a mix of residential, commercial, community facility, and light manufacturing and industrial uses. The R5 district extends east and north of the project area and consists of a mix of 2 to 5 story multifamily buildings and non-conforming low-scale industrial and commercial buildings. Immediately northwest of the project area is an R71 district, which was rezoned as part of the Vernon Boulevard rezoning in 2006 and is developed with 2 19-story residential towers. Areas south and immediately west of the project area are mapped with an M11 district, and they contain a mix of uses, including industrial, transportation-related, schools, hotels, and 2 to 3-story residences. And the area southwest of the project area is mapped M31 and contains the previously mentioned Ravenswood power plant. Next slide, please. And as previously mentioned, Northwest Ravenswood is a predominantly mixed-use and industrial neighborhood within an R5 district, resulting in a large amount of non-conforming uses. This mismatch of existing zoning to underlying use and the constraints of R5 zoning were subject to previous DCP analysis and framework, and its study area is within the dotted red line here. Discussions with the community rose due to a cluster of several private applications in this area with outdated R5 zoning seeking mixed districts, and the sites highlighted here in blue are recent zoning map amendments, most of which were rezoned from the existing R5 to districts that would allow mixed-use development. The project area is also south of the 2010 Astoria rezoning area, which is shaded here in green, which was a contextual rezoning that encompassed 238 blocks located north of Broadway in Western Astoria and just northwest of the Long Island City industrial business zones. Next slide, please. And this tax map outlines the development site in red, which includes lot 23, and the project area is outlined in the dotted black line, which includes lot 20 and portions of lot 16 and 33. Next slide, please. And this is a view of the project area facing south, which has frontage on Vernon Boulevard and 35th Avenue, which are wide streets, and 9th Street, which is a narrow street. The development site is developed with a legally non-conforming 2-story warehouse, which serves as a facility for the storage and distribution of automotive parts. And the facilities currently plan to consolidate its operations into larger facilities in the Bronx and Brooklyn. Other uses within the project area include a legally non-compliant 5-story mixed-use building with a restaurant on the ground floor, as well as a non-conforming 1.5-story warehouse that contains a concrete contractor business, frontage on Vernon Boulevard, and a non-conforming single-story warehouse fronting 9th Street, which contains a commercial bakery. Next slide. And this slide shows views of the project area along Vernon Boulevard. The blue arrow here indicates a view facing northeast on Vernon Boulevard with the 2-story warehouse and 5-story mixed-use building on the right, and the 19-story residential towers in the distance. The purple arrow here shows a view facing southwest on Vernon Boulevard with the development site in view on the left, and the Ravenswood Power Station in the distance. And the green arrow here is a view of the development site facing southwest. Next slide, please. And the blue arrow here shows a view of the development site facing southeast from the intersection of Vernon Boulevard and 35th Avenue. And the purple arrow here is a view looking down 35th Avenue with the development site on the right. And the green arrow is a view of the development site facing south on 35th Avenue. Next slide, please. And here, the blue arrow shows a view of the development site facing southwest from the intersection of 35th Avenue and 9th Street. The purple arrow here shows a view facing southeast of 9th Street from 35th Avenue with the development site on the right. And the green arrow is a view facing northeast from 35th Avenue with the development site on the left from 9th Street. Next slide, please. The applicant proposes a new 9-story mixed-use building at a height of 95 feet. It would total approximately 117,524 square feet, including approximately 7,923 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor, approximately 18,000 square feet of office and light manufacturing space on the second floor, and approximately 86,000 square feet of residential space on floors 3 through 9. The applicant proposes 107 new dwelling units, of which 26 would be made permanently affordable under MIH Option 1. And the building would provide a total of 77 parking spaces throughout the subcellar, cellar, and ground floor. Next slide, please. The proposed building would rise to a maximum height of 95 feet at 9 stories after 10-foot setbacks are provided at a base height of 75 feet at 7 stories along Vernon Boulevard and 35th Avenue. and a 15-foot setback is provided along 9th Street, which is a narrow street, at a base height of 75 feet at 7 stories, and the southern end of the development site would rise to 5 stories. Next slide, please. The ground floor would contain 3 separate retail spaces with entrances at 9th Street, Vernon Boulevard, and 35th Avenue. And also on 35th Avenue is access to the residential lobby and an entrance to a lobby that would access the second floor offices and light manufacturing spaces. Parking spaces would be accessed by a new 20-foot curb cut on 9th Street to 46 spaces in the subcellar and 24 spaces in the cellar. And a loading berth and 7 parking spaces on the ground floor would be accessed by the existing 18-foot curb cut on Vernon Boulevard. Next slide. And the second floor would contain 3 separate light manufacturing spaces totaling approximately 7,479 square feet and 3 separate office spaces totaling approximately 7,443 square feet. Next slide. And this slide illustrates a section from 35th Avenue with setbacks provided at the 7th floor. Next slide. And this is a section from Vernon Boulevard. You can see here outdoor recreation space being provided on the 8th floor. Next slide. And to facilitate this development, the applicant proposes 2 actions, one of which is a zoning map amendment to rezone the project area from an R5 district to a special mixed-use district pairing an R7A with an M14 district. This transition from an R5 zoning district to an R7A N14 district would permit a variety of uses, including residential, commercial, community facility, and light manufacturing uses. The proposed rezoning would also bring the remainder of the project area into compliance and conformance. And the R7A N14 district would permit new mixed-use development with affordable housing with a maximum residential FAR of 4.6 in an MIH area, maximum community facility FAR of 3.0, and a maximum commercial and manufacturing FARs of 2.0. Next slide. And the application also includes a zoning text amendment to establish an MIH area, which would be coterminous with the project area, and the applicant proposes to map MIH option 1. The AMI for the Queensbridge, Ravenswood, Dutch Kills NTA is roughly 41,700, and the AMI for Community District 1 is roughly 69,000, which highlights the need to stretch affordable housing resources throughout the district. Next slide. And in summary, this is an application for a zoning map amendment and zoning text amendment to facilitate the development of a 9-story mixed-use building with 107 residential units, of which 26 would be permanently affordable, along with 25,981 square feet of commercial and light industrial uses in the Ravenswood neighborhood of Queens. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Are there any questions from the commission? Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes, I was looking through our packet. I didn't see any plans of the residential portion, so if they can please provide that. And also if they can provide a unit breakdown of how many 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms they're proposing. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi. So, I note that historically there's no commercial overlay at this location, and the neighborhood is really well served by, a few historic commercial corridors in and around it. So I'd love for the applicant to speak to the rationale for commercial at this location. We'll also note that, presumably some of the demand they might envision coming from Roosevelt Island as well. And that Main Street has been suffering mightily with, a lot of vacancies, real challenges, managing that. And it's being managed by a single entity now. There's a few hundred square feet there. So I'm always cautious when I see, residential zoning and location being turned into commercial in a place that's somewhat isolated. And particularly given the context, the streets around it are not retail in nature. So it's not necessarily as contextual as we might imagine. So I'd just like the applicant to take that into consideration and come back with some thoughts on that.
Sure, thank you for that. We'll make sure that the applicant can expand on what they envision for the ground floor retail. And just to offer up this, the applicant is currently speaking to Urban Upbound as well on any growth sector opportunities, particularly for the light industrial spaces. So we can be prepared to speak more to that when this comes back as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Well, yes, on the matter of uses, I think I'd like to hear more from the applicant on what they envision for the commercial and light industrial space and how that might be compatible or not incompatible with the residential presence above it, if you follow me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes, I just wanted to request that along with the unit breakdowns, if we can get breakdown by AMIs, that would really be helpful.
Okay, we'll make sure to have that available as well. And if it helps for the unit mix, I can just note that there will be 58, well, the applicant's currently proposing 58 one-bedrooms, 38 two-bedrooms, and 11 three-bedrooms. But we can also provide that with the
yeah, that would be helpful to understand where we are in terms of AMIs and what units are actually associated with the lower AMIs.
Yeah, will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, Kathy, I want to thank you again. And this item is certified. Thank you.
Thank you.
The sixth item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a city map amendment in Queens Community District 7. Our presenter is Philip Montgomery.
Good afternoon. Next slide, please. Returning for pre-hearing review is an application by the New York City Department of Environmental Protection seeking an amendment to the city map. The proposed amendment involves the elimination, discontinuance, and closing of a portion of the Clearview Expressway at its intersection with the Cross Island Expressway in Queens Community District 7. The proposed amendment would facilitate the rehabilitation of DEP's Clearview Pump Station. Next slide, please. The project site is located in an R5 zoning district just south of the Throgs Neck Bridge. Nearby land uses include Little Bay Park to the north, residential to the east, and the Clearview Park Golf Course to the west and south. The nearest mass transit includes the Q16, QM2, and Q32 buses. Next slide. Here's an aerial view of the project area. The site is located within a traffic island bounded by the Clearview Expressway and the Cross Island Expressway. Next slide, please. The pump station was originally constructed in 1954 and was designated as a combined sewage pump station, pumping flow to the interceptor system that serves the Tallman Island wastewater treatment plant. In 2002, DEP initiated a capital project to upgrade the pump station, equipping the pump station with all new mechanical, electrical, and control equipment. In August 2004, as this construction project was near completion, the site was flooded by a heavy rainfall event. The floodwaters inundated the below-grade structure of the pump station, permanently damaging all mechanical and electrical equipment. As a result, the project was not completed. The pump station site is currently used as an interim pump station and pumps sanitary flow only. Next slide, please. Here we have project photos on the left, looking at the site from the Clearview Expressway exit ramp. In the middle, a picture looking at the interim above grade controls from the Cross Island Expressway. And then on the right, another picture of the site from Rowe Place. Next slide, please. On the left, another picture of the site from the Cross Island Expressway, looking towards the Clearview Expressway, and then two additional site photos. Next slide, please. DEP is proposing to completely refurbish and upgrade the pump station. The proposed project would redevelop the project site with a new one-story, approximately 26-foot tall building that would house power and controls equipment as well as a standby diesel generator. The building and protective fencing have been designed to meet DOT clear site requirements at the intersection. The reconstruction and upgrade of the permanent pump station would provide resiliency for all critical equipment by relocation of the equipment to an elevation based on current FEMA guidance and safety measures recommended by DEP. Next slide, please. This is a rendering of the proposed new pump station from the Clearview Expressway exit ramp. Next slide, please. Rendering of the proposed new pump station from the Cross Island Expressway looking towards the Clearview Expressway exit ramp. Next slide, please. And rendering of the proposed new pump station from the Cross Island Expressway looking west. Next slide, please. Community Board 7 voted 40 in favor with 1 opposed to approve the application with the following conditions. That the Department of Transportation is to install 2 left turning lanes going westbound onto the Cross Island Parkway Service Road at the Willits Point exit. And also to reduce the building height, which houses the backup generator. Next slide, please. And the Borough President issued a recommendation of approval of the application with the following conditions. There should be a goal of 30% for local hiring and use of MWBE businesses in the construction and development of this project. There should also be quarterly reporting on the numbers of people hired and if the 30% hiring goal has been reached. And lastly, there should be coordination between DEP and DOT to review and explore the opportunity to create double lanes on the Clearview Expressway Road at Real Place. This concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much, Philip. Questions from the commission? I see Commissioner Ramprashad. I saw Commissioner Ramprashad.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Sorry, I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. Thank you once again for the presentation. A couple of just quick questions when they come back on Wednesday. With regards to the community board's request about the reduction in height, is that something that DEP is able to do, as well as can they respond to the borough president's requests? And one last question I have is, in regards to the guardrails, the grass, will DEP be responsible for maintaining that? If they can just confirm how that's going to be addressed.
Yes. So your first question, I will let the applicant team discuss, the height option or reducing the height on Wednesday. But it's my understanding that yes, DEP will be maintaining that property. It would be transferred from DOT to DEP.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Burney.
Thank you. Okay, I mean, I understand that this is a utilitarian building, and as such, there's no fenestration and so on possible, I guess. But I mean, isn't there anything we can do to make it less depressing? I mean, infrastructure is something we should celebrate. This is a public facility that's doing great things for people. Is there not a kind of an educational component that we can use the building to explain what it's for and make it something to celebrate? I just think we should try to encourage the architects to give it some more creative thought.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Levin.
Yeah, I just really echo this. This is the most depressing looking. I mean, I was hoping you were just showing us a blank box without a design, but you described them as renderings. So, and it's got an architect's name on the bottom of it and a pretty reputable architect. So, I mean, this is baffling. Does this not go through Public Design Commission review?
Yes, this was reviewed by the Public Design Commission.
And they signed off on this? I mean, these are the same people that got the salt shed built on the West Side Highway. That is a beautiful piece of infrastructure design, as David was encouraging us to do. Can't we do the same in Queens?
Understood.
Maybe we need to send David back. No. Okay. We will relate your comments on this to the team. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, then this is on for hearing on Wednesday, so we'll discuss it further then.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks, Phil. The 7th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a city map amendment in Staten Island Community District 3, and Phil will present this as well.
Next slide, please. Yes, also returning for pre-hearing review is an application by the New York City Department of Transportation and the New York City Department of Design and Construction, seeking an amendment to the city map. The proposed amendment involves the widening and a realignment of a portion of Amboy Road at its intersection with Richmond Avenue in the Eltingville neighborhood of Staten Island Community District 3. The proposed amendment would facilitate the reconstruction of a 2,000-foot-long segment of Amboy Road. Next slide, please. The project site is located within an R32 zoning district with a C11 commercial overlay district along the frontages of Amboy Road and Richmond Avenue, and is also in a special zoning overlay district, the Special South Richmond Development District. The project site, block 5236, lot 1, is currently occupied by a Burger King restaurant. The predominant uses along the Amboy Road corridor include commercial, retail, and auto-related businesses that are set back from the street by surface parking lots. Strip retail is located on both sides of Amboy Road with businesses such as grocery stores, pharmacy, cleaners, bank, and similar uses. The Staten Island Railway Eltingville Station is located 1 block north of the Amboy Road and Richmond Avenue intersection. Next slide, please. Amboy Road is a principal arterial across Staten Island and is identified as a local truck route by DOT. The subject portion is mapped between 80 and 60 feet and is under both city and private ownership, as this segment of Amboy Road has not been built to its fully mapped width. The proposed project includes the reconstruction of a 2,000 linear foot portion of Amboy Road. Improvements include additional travel lanes, a raised median, and new sidewalks and lighting. The proposed city map amendment that would widen and realign an area at the intersection of Amboy Road and Richmond Avenue will also facilitate the acquisition of approximately 120 square feet of property from the adjacent project lot that is currently occupied by the Burger King restaurant. Next slide, please. Here's an aerial overview. The project area located near the bottom of the slide in red, and then the overall project reconstruction area spanning from Richmond Avenue on the southwest to Armstrong Avenue on the northeast. Next slide, please. This is a detailed view of the widening and acquisition area. Next slide, please. On the left, a picture from Amboy Road looking southeast at the project site. On the right, looking northeast at the project site from Richmond Avenue. Next slide, please. On the left, a picture of the site from Amboy Road looking southwest towards the project site. And on the right, a picture of the site from Richmond Avenue looking towards the northwest. Next slide, please. Committee Board 3 voted 20 in favor with 1 opposed to approve the application. And the Borough President issued a recommendation to approve the application. This concludes my presentation, and I will be happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. Are there any questions from the commission?
Oh, geez, I can't.
Commissioner Cerullo.
So I just want to confirm that the two pieces of this project puzzle are incorporated into this action, even though one went through ULURP and one did not. Is that correct? There's not another piece that's going to be coming at another time that connects all the dots to this project being able to move forward.
No, that is my understanding that there would be no additional ULURP actions. This action is strictly related to the acquisition and mapping of the 120 square feet of property at the intersection of Amboy and Richmond.
Okay, great. Then do we have any idea? I mean, and obviously this is likely a question for whoever comes to testify on behalf of this. What the timing of this of the project would be once these actions are completed? Do we know what that might be? If not, I mean, obviously, if that would be helpful information to know on Wednesday.
I do not have that information off the top of my head, but I will relay that to the applicant team that they should be prepared to address that on Wednesday.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions from the commission? Okay, thank you, Philip. And this is on for Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you.
The 8th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a special permit in Bronx Community District 6. Our presenter is Jutan Horseman.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Commission. This is the 660, 668 East Fordham Road pre-hearing. Next slide, please. The applicant, Shady Development LLC, seeks a zoning special permit for development of 4 lots located at 660 to 668 East Fordham Road in Bronx Community District 6. A zoning special permit is being sought to waive the off-street accessory parking requirement for the proposed residential use in a development where at least 20% of all dwelling units are income restricted. The proposed action would facilitate an 11-story mixed-use building with a total of 145 dwelling units. Next slide, please. This contact map shows the project site is located in the Belmont neighborhood. The development site is immediate area were rezoned to C45D in 2013 as part of the East Fordham Road rezoning. The rezoning affected portions of approximately 12 blocks along East Fordham Road. The rezoning was intended to create new opportunities for growth and investment. Next slide, please. The project site highlighted in red is located on East Fordham Road Avenue. The Fordham University, Bronx Zoo, and Botanical Gardens are major regional attractions in the immediate area. Arthur Avenue is located 2 blocks to the west, which leads to the Little Italy neighborhood area, and it is a thriving mixed-use corridor with numerous eating and drinking establishments. The area is well served by mass transit, with Fordham Plaza located west of the development site, where 8 bus lines, including 2 SBS lines, and the Fordham Metro North Station converge. Fordham Road is a prominent east-west thoroughfare which serves as the gateway to the central Bronx. Next slide, please. Zooming in on the proposed development site, at review session, there was a concern raised by Commissioner Marin regarding the possibility of making an illegal left turn from the site onto Fordham Road. There's no proposed curve cut on the Fordham Road side of the development, which will funnel all traffic from the proposed development onto Camberling Avenue. Additionally, you can see there is a hard barrier made up of concrete and metal fencing between the eastbound and westbound lanes, which would not allow a left turn from the site. Additionally, from this proposed site, there is a grade change with concrete barriers between the eastbound Fordham Road over an underpass that would not allow any turns except making a right turn onto Fordham Road overpass from Camberling Avenues. For vehicles to go west on Fordham, they'd most likely need to access it from Crotona Avenue ramp onto Fordham Road. This also shows the one-way roads along Belmont and Camberling Avenues that direct the flow of vehicles and traffic. Next slide. Some photos of the site, including a view from East Fordham Road, where you can see the barriers between the east and westbound Fordham roads, as well as the barrier and grade differences between the upper and lower Fordham roads. Next slide, please. View along Camberling Avenue, where you can see Camberling is a one-way road that would require a right turn onto Fordham Road, and noting the curb cut for the proposed development is located in the approximate area of the existing parking. Next slide, please. Here's an elevation and rendering that the commission requested that shows the proposed development, which would consist of an 11-story mixed-use building, 115 feet high. The cellar would contain an approximately 11,500 square foot community facility space intended as a medical use and storage. The ground floor would contain about 14,500 square foot fresh grocery store, and the second floor would contain 47 accessory parking spaces required by restrictive declaration for the adjacent ambulatory medical use that would be accessed from the vehicle entrance on Camberling Avenue. Floors 3 through 11 would contain a total of 145 dwelling units. The proposed fresh use would waive out of the parking requirements. In terms of the proposed residential use, the building will have a total of 145 residential units comprised of 17 studios, 101 one-bedroom units, and 27 two-bedroom units. There will be 28 inclusionary housing units, which are using the voluntary inclusionary housing program, and would consist of 3 studios, 21 bedrooms, and 5 two-bedroom units, each restricted at or below 80% of AMI. Next slide, please. There are 3 entrances from Camberling Avenues for access to the supermarket, residential, and vehicular entrances. From East Fordham roadside, there is an entry to the supermarket, community facility cellar entrance, and the residential egress exit. In addition to the proposed special permit, the applicant is also seeking a chair certification pursuant to the fresh food store regulations. The 14,500 square foot supermarket would contain about 13,500 square feet of a qualifying fresh store that would be allocated to the 10th and 11th floors. Next slide, please. The applicant, Shady Development LLC, is seeking a zoning special permit to waive the off-street accessory requirements of residential spaces. The proposed special permit allows for the waiving of off-street accessory parking requirements when at least 20% of all dwelling units are income restricted. Under the proposal, the applicant is providing 28 of the 145 units at or below 80% AMI to waive the parking. In order to qualify for the special permit, the applicant must meet the findings that the waiver of parking spaces will facilitate the development in consultation with HPD, not cause traffic congestion, and not have undue adverse effects on residents, businesses, or community facilities in the surrounding area. Next slide, please. On November 10th, Community Board 6 submitted an unfavorable recommendation that they supported with a vote of 28 in favor, 2 opposed, and 0 abstentions. The Bronx Borough President did not support the proposal due to the project not having enough 2- and 3-bedroom units, and citing that as a significant area of need in the Bronx. In order to get the Borough President's support, the project would need at least 40% of the units to contain 2 or more bedrooms. It's worth reiterating that in order for the project to qualify for waiving the required parking, the applicant must meet the findings that the waiver of the parking spaces will facilitate the development in consultation with HPD, not cause traffic congestion, not have undue adverse effects on the residences, businesses, or community facilities in the surrounding area. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Jutan. Could
Thank
you
you.
please elaborate on the community board's reasoning for its no vote here?
Yeah, well, in the recommendation, they didn't supply any more information. At the meeting, they had concerns that the new development would create additional demand for parking in the area. So the community board wanted new parking to offset the new development. And then kind of counter that, the borough president actually in his recommendation noted that he felt that the parking seemed sufficient. So you had kind of 2 different ideas if parking was sufficient or not sufficient based on the community board and BP's recommendations.
Thank you. Commissioner Marin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So one, Jatan, I just wanted to clarify something. When I said left, I actually was looking at the drawing incorrectly. I meant right, because obviously Fordham Road does go east in that direction. My concern was the congestion of any traffic coming out of that building, because as we know, Chamberlain is very, very busy all the time. There's always traffic backed up 2 and 3 blocks long. So you've answered the question. I understand it. I respect it. I would just, if I were the applicant, I'd look at some mechanism to put in place to make sure that traffic doesn't get congested between people coming out of the garage and people driving down the street. The other thing that I wanted to note was I note the borough president's dismay with the number of 2 and 3 units, and I too find this a lost opportunity to house families. As we know, Fordham University is right across the street, and this is a very transient student neighborhood. And as such, I'm sure they're looking to capitalize on that, but that's at the detriment of the community. I can tell you that when I drive down that community at times, the loud partying, the trash, the drinking by the students, which is should be controlled by Fordham University, is not, and is disturbing to that neighborhood. And that's the concern about having these 1 and 2 bedrooms and not family-sized units. So I would encourage the applicant to reconsider that, and maybe at the same time ask for some subsidy, because that's what would happen if he would be able to bring up his 2 and 3 bedroom count. So I appreciate the presentation, Jatan. Thank you.
Yeah. And to address that, the applicant is aware of that and will address it further at the public hearing.
Thank you. Commissioner Burney.
Oh, thank you. Jatan, I'm just trying to understand something. In the rendering, which is your slide 8, there's a kind of wedge of green between the retail base and the apartment, which I'm assuming is the parking, right?
Correct. That's the parking level.
So my question is, like, how do you get to that parking? Because I couldn't quite figure that out from the plan. And how do they expect to get trees to grow in that space where there's obviously very little soil depth and not very much light?
Well, the applicant will be able to speak to the detail of the trees and how they would be able to keep them alive. But so on the slide 9, which has the ground floor plan. They actually plan on having the entrance, and then it will be a lift, which will raise the cars up to the second level. That's my understanding. So, but they'll be able to speak to the details of that plan further on Wednesday as well.
Okay, and I don't see a floor plan of the parking level. Is that available? Can they provide that?
I will let them know, see if they can provide that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you. Juton, I don't know how much you know about this, but I'll ask it anyway. These 47 parking spaces that must be maintained under this restrictive declaration. How did that come about? Because the ambulatory care facility, I believe, is on the north side of Fordham Road, is it not? So
correct.
Did the ambulatory care entity own this property at one time? How did that come about?
I am actually not familiar with all the details of that. I know the applicant will be able to speak to that further.
John, do you want me to help?
It is the same.
Sure.
Owner.
Yeah, okay, here we go.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sean.
It is the same owner of the ambulatory care facility across the street. So they'll be coming in to speak to it. And that's, kind of how that came about.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Levin.
Yeah, I just was going to fess up to, I believe I voted for the for the parking across the street. It seemed a little cuckoo-ish at the time. Ken, I suspect you probably voted for it too. But it becomes even stranger when you're putting up a 145 unit building with no parking, trying to waive out of all of the parking that's required. I can't believe I'm arguing in favor of parking. I mean, that's not what I usually do around here. But I hope that the applicant can elaborate a little bit more on the information they have in the findings to make us feel better about the demand that this is going to generate and how it can be met elsewhere in the neighborhood. It seems pretty extreme to waive out of 100% of the required parking.
Thank you. Are there additional questions? Oh, Commissioner Marie.
I'm not understanding the parking situation where you're saying they're waiving out 100% of the parking. So you're saying that the residential building is waiving out of the 100% of its parking, and the 47 units are going to all met across the street?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, well, all met, I can tell you, I've been seeing a doctor there since 2008, and I haven't gone recently, but they always had this plan of building this residential building across the street on their parking facility. And they also had a plan to go up 12 stories on the existing building that they have now, none of which has come to fruition. Apparently, they can't get it done, which is why they're leasing out the space. But they had a plan where they would lease out the space and keep the parking because they need it for the folks who are visiting the medical facility, I-1, which as it was at one point. So I would agree. I'm not understanding how they opt out 100% of parking in that neighborhood, but it'll be interesting to hear from the applicant on Wednesday.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Well, if not, then this will be on for Wednesday's hearing. Thank you, Juton, very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the 9th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of an amendment to an urban renewal plan in Brooklyn Community District 5. Karina Leung is our presenter.
I'll be presenting on behalf of Karina.
Karenza, that's right. Sorry about that.
Of course. So good afternoon, commissioners. This is a pre-hearing presentation for the 5th Amendment to the East New York Urban Renewal Plan located in the East New York neighborhood of Brooklyn Community District 5. Next slide. You can see here, this is the location of the project site. Next slide. Proposed development is an infill building on a 20 by 100-foot interior lot located in the middle of a residential block. The 3-story building would contain 4 dwelling units, affordable to low and very low income households. To facilitate this project, HPD is requesting an approval of an amendment to the East New York 1 Urban Renewal Plan to change the designated use of the development site to allow for residential use, rather than being used for open space as is currently recorded in the URP. This project is also being facilitated by a UDAP designation and approval, which I received from City Council last year. Next slide. In response to Commissioner Burney's question at certification about nearby open space, this map shows parks and gardens open to the community in the area. The closest open space to the development site is a NYCHA-owned play area on the same block that has playground equipment. There is also the Success Community Garden about a 5-minute walk away. This is a 40,000 square foot green thumb space that, as you can see from the photos, has a gazebo and seating in addition to planting beds. A couple minutes further is a Lions Pride Playground, where Parks is about to start construction on a $4 million overhaul that will include a new basketball court, adult fitness equipment, a spray shower, new playground equipment, seating, and game tables. Next slide. The applicant team presented this project to the Community Board's Land Use Committee in October, but the board did not hold a public hearing or vote on the matter. The committee had questions about affordability and fire safety, to which the applicant team did respond and will discuss at the public hearing. The borough president held their public hearing in November and recommended approving the application with a modification to include as part of the designated use the requirement that the site remains permanently affordable. The BP also recommended that HPD memorialize certain terms in its agreement with the developer relating to managing affordability and sustainability issues. Next slide. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Carenza. Are there any questions from the commission on this item? Okay, I don't see any. So this will be on for Wednesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The 10th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a zoning map and zoning text amendment and special permit in Brooklyn, Community District 8. Jonah Rogoff is our presenter.
Good afternoon, commissioners. This is an application returning for pre-hearing from Y&T Development LLC for a zoning map amendment from an M11 district to a C63A district, as well as a zoning text amendment to map an MIH area and allow street wall location flexibility. And finally, a special permit to reduce required off-street parking. Next slide, please. Just a quick refresher, the project area is in the Prospect Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn in Community District 8 and situated on the south side of Atlantic Avenue, a 120-foot wide corridor that stretches across multiple neighborhoods. Next slide. The project area, outlined in blue, covers a mid-block portion along the south side of Atlantic Avenue between Vanderbilt and Underhill Avenues. The project area is also located within an M11 district and within the M Crown study area. With respect to the surrounding area, I just want to note that the project area is adjacent to the recently approved 840 Atlantic Avenue application, which mapped a blend of C63X, C63A, and C62A districts, as well as southeast of another recently approved application at 809 Atlantic Avenue, which is a 29-story tower that's currently under construction. Further to the west is Pacific Park, a multi-block state-led project that includes the recently constructed 550 Vanderbilt development, and where several towers are proposed in the future further to the west along Atlantic Avenue. Next slide, please. The applicant proposes a 17-story mixed-use building totaling approximately 170,000 square feet, or 8.5 FAR, which would be comprised of 228 units, of which 69 would be made permanently affordable, as well as approximately 13,500 square feet of commercial and 5,500 square feet of community facility space. In addition, 40 parking spaces would be provided in the building cellar. Next slide, please. To facilitate the proposal, the applicant seeks 3 land use actions. First, a zoning map amendment from M11 to C63A, which would start at a distance of 200 feet from Underhill Avenue, and then extend to the boundary of the recently approved rezoning area for 840 Atlantic, shaded in gray. C63A is a contextual commercial district with an R9A equivalent that allows a maximum FAR of 6 for commercial, 7.5 for community facilities, and 8.5 for residential. It allows a maximum base height of 125 feet, a maximum building height of 175 feet, and then off-street parking is required for 40% of the non-income restricted dwelling units. Next slide, please. Second, the applicant seeks a zoning text amendment to establish an MIH area under options 2 and the workforce option. Next slide. In addition to the MIH text amendment, the applicant also seeks a text amendment to enable the development to set back an additional 8 feet from Atlantic Avenue and allow the sidewalk to widen to 20 feet for the purpose of enhancing the streetscape. Next slide. Lastly, the applicant seeks a special permit pursuant to section 74-533 to reduce the number of accessory residential off-street parking spaces from 86 to 40 spaces. Next slide. And just turning attention back to the M-Crown framework, I want to note that the project area is within the Atlantic Avenue sub-area, which the department has identified as an appropriate location for a high-density mix of commercial and residential use, primarily due to the width of the corridor and the area's close proximity to public transit, as well as its access to downtown Brooklyn and other job centers. Next slide. On November 10th of last year, Community Board 8 recommended to disapprove the application by a vote of 22 in favor, 7 opposed, and 5 abstaining, with the following conditions. First, there was a long discussion with the main recommendation that the applicant withdraw the application in favor of a neighborhood-wide rezoning of M-Crown. However, if that is not possible, the board recommended a series of preferences. First, there was a preference to have the applicant file a new text amendment to create a contextual version of a C61 district that includes a non-residential requirement on the ground floor, coupled with a non-residential incentive. Next, there was a preference to modify the non-applicant owned lots to C62A or an R8A equivalent, and then map the MIHD affordability option, and then consider 3 sub-options in order of preference. First, there was a preference to maintain the proposed C63A zoning on the development site, but have the applicant restrict at least 4,700 square feet to a subset of commercial and industrial uses, commit to MIH option 3 or the deep affordability option, and limit the building height to 15 stories. If that option isn't possible, then the board recommended to modify the entire rezoning area to C62A with a commitment by the applicant to restrict residential to 5.2 FAR in order to allow at least 2 FAR for non-residential use. And then if that option is impossible, the board recommended to modify the zoning to C45D or an R7D equivalent. I want to note that we're still awaiting the Borough President's recommendation, and I'll be sure to share as soon as that's available. Before taking questions, I want to note in response to a couple of questions at certification, the applicant is considering increasing the amount of bicycle parking within the development. And then on Wednesday, they'll be prepared to speak more to the non-residential uses being proposed and the types of programming being considered. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonah. Are there any questions from the commission? Commissioner Ortiz.
Just a comment, I do appreciate the additional bike parking. That's something that's been coming up quite a bit, and we recognize that our current code doesn't quite request as much as it now probably makes sense to include. So thank you for that additional information.
Thank you. Commissioner Levitt.
Yeah, John, I wanted to ask about the proposed zoning here and whether there's been any renewed thinking about it in light of the modifications that the council made for the adjacent site at 840 Atlantic, where the parcel closest to this project site was in fact rezoned to a C63A, as I recall. And has that given your team or the applicant any pause, any reason to think that the same fate might be in store for this application?
Sure. So thanks for that question, Commissioner. I just want to clarify that the 840 Atlantic application, there was a small sliver that was changed to C628, but most of the site.
Correct. But it's the small sliver that's closest to this project area, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that overall the department believes that an R9 density is appropriate here, and I would also mention that the community board's recommendation, they did kind of leave some room for that discussion if certain uses were provided in the building. I would also note that for 1045 Atlantic, that's the application a bit further to the east between Franklin and Classen on the north side of Atlantic. That was approved with a C63A zoning, which the council approved as well.
Right, different community district and different council member at the time.
But I would just say overall, we believe that R9 really is appropriate here, and maybe we can speak more to that after the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Okay, thank you very much, Jonah. So this will be on for hearing. Thank you.
All right. The 11th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a zoning map and zoning text amendment and special permit just down the street in Brooklyn Community District 8. And Jonah will present this as well.
Great. Hi again, commissioners. So this is an application returning for pre-hearing by EMP Capital Group. It's for zoning map amendment from M11 to C630A. Similar to the last application, as well as a portion of which would be rezoned to R7A C24. And they're also seeking a zoning text amendment to map MIH and allow street wall location flexibility, as well as a special permit to lower the amount of required off-street parking. Next slide. Again, a refresher, the project area is in the Crown Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn, Community District 8, and also situated on the south side of Atlantic, just about 2 blocks east of the 870 Atlantic Avenue application. Next slide, please. The project area outlined in blue covers the eastern portion of a block fronting Classen Avenue between Pacific Street and Atlantic Avenue. And you can also see the development site outlined in red, which covers a mid-block portion of the project area. Similar to last application, this area is zoned M11 and also within the M Crown neighborhood study area. I just want to quickly note in the surrounding area, there have been a number of recent private applications, many of which I know you're familiar with. These include 1010 and 1050 Pacific Street, directly to the south and east, the Grand Avenue and Pacific Street project to the west, and most recently the 1045 Atlantic Avenue project to the north and east, which involved a similar rezoning request for a C638 district, which was recently approved by the City Council. Next slide, please. The applicant proposes a 17-story mixed-use building, totaling approximately 143,000 square feet, or 7.93 FAR, which would be comprised of 210 units, of which 52 to 63 would be permanently affordable, as well as approximately 12,000 square feet of commercial and 2,600 square feet of community facility space. Since a portion of the development site is a through lot, the development is proposed to consist of a 1-story base with 2 building segments, one portion along the Atlantic Avenue frontage, as shown in the rendering to the left, that would rise to 175 feet. And then in the other building segment along Pacific Street, shown in the rendering to the right, that would rise to 95 feet. In addition, 20 parking spaces would be provided in this building cellar, which would be accessible by a curb cut along Pacific Street. Next slide, please. To facilitate the proposal, the applicant seeks 3 actions. First, a zoning map amendment from M11 to C638 along the Atlantic Avenue facing frontage, and then R7A C24 along the Pacific Street frontage with a zoning boundary that would extend 315 feet from Classen Avenue. C638 is a commercial district with an R9A equivalent that allows a maximum FAR of 6 for commercial, 7.5 for community facilities, and 8.5 for residential. It allows a maximum base height of 125 feet, a maximum building height of 175 feet, and an off-street parking requirement for 40% of the non-income restricted units. R7A is a contextual residential district that allows a maximum FAR of 4.6 for residential, 4 FAR for community facilities, and then 2 FAR for commercial when paired with a C24 overlay. R7A allows a maximum base height of 75 feet, maximum building height of 95 feet, and has an off-street parking requirement for 50% of the non-income restricted units. Next slide, please. Second, the applicant seeks a zoning text amendment to establish an MIH area under options 1 and 2. Next slide. And then similar to the prior application, the applicant also seeks a text amendment related to street wall location regulations to allow the development to set back from Atlantic Avenue to facilitate a 20-foot wide sidewalk. Next slide. Lastly, the applicant seeks a special permit pursuant to section 74-533 to reduce the number of accessory residential off-street parking spaces from 57 to 68 to 20. Next slide, please. And as mentioned earlier, the project area is within M-Crown and located in both the Atlantic Avenue and mid-block framework subareas. Again, due to the wide width of Atlantic Avenue and the area's close proximity to public transit and other job centers in the framework, we did identify Atlantic being an appropriate location for a high density mix of commercial and residential use, while supporting a more moderate density contextual scale along Pacific Street. Next slide. On November 10th of last year, Community Board 8 recommended to disapprove the application by a vote of 22 in favor, 10 opposed, and 3 abstaining, with the following conditions, most of which mirror the recommendation for 870 Atlantic. So first, the board recommended to ask the applicant to withdraw in favor of having a neighborhood-wide rezoning of M-Crown. And if that's not possible, the board recommended 4 options in order of preference. First, a preference to remove the lots fronting Atlantic Avenue from the application, and then have the applicant file a new text amendment to create a contextual version of a C61 district that includes a non-residential requirement on the ground floor that would be coupled with a non-residential incentive. Second, there was a preference to consider a C638 district if the corner lot, lot 40, was removed and the applicant restricted at least 5,400 square feet of the development to a subset of commercial and industrial uses, as well as commit to the MIH deep affordability option and then limit the building height to 15 stories. Third, there was a preference to modify the zoning to C62A or an R8A equivalent, with a commitment by the applicant to restrict residential to 5.2 FAR. And then lastly, there was a final preference if the above options aren't possible to modify the zoning to C45D and R7D equivalent. And similar to the last application, we are still awaiting the borough president's recommendation, and we'll share that when it is available. And then before concluding, I just want to note that in response to questions raised at certification related to whether the development would be considered 1 or 2 buildings, specifically related to how MIH would be distributed, the applicant representative did clarify that the development is intended to be a single building connected by a 1-story base. And with that, I can take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks again, Jonah. Are there any questions? Commissioner Levin.
Well, then, Jonah, thank you for getting the information about the one building or two. That leads to the follow-on question, which is how will the MIH units be distributed? Let's just hope they're not all getting parked out back on Pacific Street, but that they will be distributed equally throughout both buildings.
That's my understanding, and I'll be sure to have the applicant clarify that on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? All right, then. Thank you again, Jonah. So this will be on for Wednesday's hearing.
Okay, the 12th item on our agenda is a post-referral review of a non-ULURP renewal of a previously approved authorization in Staten Island, Community District 1. Our presenter is Katie Ferrara-Iannido.
Thanks. Good afternoon, commissioners. This is an application in Staten Island Community District 1 by Pier 21 Development LLC for renewal of a 2017 commission authorization for phased development of a waterfront public access area. Next slide, please. So this project had 4 approvals that were granted in 2017, and those were 1, a zoning map change of an M21 district to M21, R6, and a C22 overlay within the Special Stapleton Waterfront District. Second, a zoning text amendment to add a sub-district to that special district and to establish an MIH area. 3, a chair certification for the design of the waterfront public access area and visual corridor. And lastly, the subject of today's application, the commission authorization for phased build out of the waterfront public access area. That phasing authorization was subject to lapse 4 years after its approval in the absence of substantial construction. However, the applicant did file an application for renewal prior to that lapse date, and the commission may now renew the original authorization for a period of 3 years. Next slide, please. The area that's surrounding the project site is characterized by a mix of industrial, transportation, utility, retail, and residential uses. And these conditions really have not changed significantly since the authorization was approved in 2017. So here you can see the project site itself that's outlined in red. It's part of the Special Stapleton Waterfront District, which extends about a mile farther northward than the slide. And the goals of that special district include providing access to the waterfront, facilitating development in character with surrounding conditions, and providing daily amenities to residents and workers in the area. A few other things on the map there, the Clifton station of the Staten Island rail line is nearby. That's at the intersection of Bay Street and Front Street. The SIR provides service from the St. George Ferry Terminal down to Tottenville. Just north of the project site is the Pouch Terminal building. It's a 7-story office building that contains doctor's offices, NYPD offices, the local board of elections, and the office of Community Board 1. West of the project site between Edgewater Street and Bay Street are some utility operators, including a power generating plant that was built in 2001. The area also has 1- and 2-story commercial stores and restaurants, mostly fronting along Bay Street. And then buildings to the south of the project site include 2- and 3-story former industrial buildings and marina and boat storage, some newer retail and commercial, and 1 former manufacturing building that received a variance from BSA to convert to residential use. Next slide, please. So here are just some current views of conditions around the project area. Photos 1 and 2 are showing parts of Bay Street near the site. Photo 3 shows the Pouch Terminal building from Edgewater Street. Next slide. And some sections that are south of the site, farther down Edgewater, including some newer construction, the commercial construction, as well as offices and the utilities buildings that I mentioned. Next slide, please. And here we're showing portions of the project site that's currently accessible from Edgewater. You can see some of the vacated building structures that are on the site in the upper photos and the proximity to the Pouch building in photo 9 at the bottom. Next slide, please. So this is the site that is proposed for development. The lot itself extends to the pier headline and has a total of almost 800,000 square feet, but only about 144,000 square feet is land that's above the water. The site was used by the MTA for bus storage and parking until the early 1990s, and the MTA awarded the site to the current applicant via an RFP that was transferred in 2007. The lot contains 2 vacant buildings, 9,000 square foot, 2-story masonry building at the north end of the lot. It's actually proposed to be enlarged as part of the proposed development, and also a 5,000 square foot, 1-story steel shed at the south end of the lot that's proposed to be demolished. The site conditions have not changed since the authorization was approved in 2017. Next slide, please. So the applicant's proposing to develop 3 buildings that are now as of right under the rezoning and the text amendment that were adopted in 2017. In total, development will be about 376,000 square feet and have approximately 371 dwelling units, at least 93 of which will be permanently affordable under MIH. Each of the 3 buildings will meet Building Code Appendix G flood resiliency requirements by limiting uses below the base flood elevation to just lobby entrances and parking with visual screening around the parking. And each building will have a retail space located above the ground level. The buildings are not the subject of the current application, but there is more information on their plans available in your briefing packages as well as on the slide. And the applicant notes that there have been no changes to plans for any of these buildings, and construction has not commenced since the approval due to unforeseen and substantial delays in construction, including COVID-19. Next slide, please. So the development of the mixed-use buildings triggers requirements under zoning for the site to provide public access to the waterfront. The applicant received 2 waterfront approvals in 2017. I mentioned one was a chair certification that the proposed open space design complies with zoning requirements. That does not expire. The second was the commission authorization for phase development of the waterfront area, which is subject to the current application. So the applicant's proposed design of the waterfront has not changed since it was approved in 2017. The proposed site improvements include a shore public walkway, upland connection, and visual corridor for a total waterfront public access area of about 52,000 square feet. The applicant proposes to complete the waterfront features in 3 phases, generally from south to north. And I'll go through each of those phases now. Next slide, please. So in phase 1, the southern portion of the shore public walkway, as well as the upland connection, will be completed together with the first building, Building A. A total of 37,000 square feet of waterfront public access, which is more than half the total for the project, will be provided with that first building. The shore public walkway portion to be built in phase 1 will be 40 feet wide between the building and the bulkhead and railing at the water. There will be an unobstructed walkway, 12 feet wide, as well as trees, lighting, benches, and trash receptacles incorporated as required. Now, the upland connection is designed as an extension of Lyndhurst Avenue. It's a type 2 upland connection as defined in zoning, which means it's required to have 2 pedestrian sidewalks, one on either side of the driveway. So each of the sidewalk areas are 20 feet wide with 10-foot unobstructed walkways, 5-foot tree pits, and lighting, benches, and bicycle racks adjacent. The upland connection also provides a required 70-foot turnaround for FDNY emergency vehicles. The upland connection also serves as a required 60-foot wide visual corridor from Edgewater Street to the water. Next slide, please. So in phase 2, the shore public walkway will be extended northward together with the construction of Building B. By the end of phase 2, about 49,000 square feet of waterfront will be publicly accessible. And in this portion, the shore public walkway will be 35 feet wide to accommodate the narrowing of the zoning lot here. The 35-foot shore public walkway requirement for this portion of the site was codified in the 2017 approval of the text amendment to the special district. The narrower access area will still accommodate a 12-foot walkway and trees and seating as required. To the north of Building B is going to be a 91-foot wide public access area, or PAA. The PAA is at the terminus of an existing vehicular and pedestrian easement that traverses the adjacent property and ends at Edgewater Street. So this PAA will provide pedestrian access from that easement to the waterfront, as well as a required FDNY turnaround. And as you can see in the drawing, the southern pedestrian portion and the complete vehicular turnaround is to be completed in phase 2. Next slide, please. So finally, in phase 3, building C will be completed along with the last 3,000 square feet of waterfront public access at the north end of the site. So that includes the completion of the PAA's northern walkway and the final portion of the shore public walkway between building C and the water. So because building C is partly an adaptive reuse project and the existing brick building is located only about 13 feet from the site's bulkhead in the water, a walkway of 8 feet was codified in the special district text here in 2017. The walkway will be buffered also from the building by a 5-foot planted area. Next slide, please. So this application was referred to Staten Island Community Board 1, who voted to approve the renewal with 13 in favor, 10 opposed, and 4 abstaining. Now, although the board did not submit any conditions with this recommendation for renewal, they did note during the discussion that their 2017 recommendation included a condition that the waterfront esplanade should be completed in 1 phase. Next slide, please. So to facilitate the proposed construction of the 3 mixed-use buildings and the waterfront public access, the applicant requests renewal of the authorization for phase development of the waterfront area. Now, per zoning resolution section 1143, the CPC can renew the original authorization for an additional 3 years. And that would go at this time to July 20th, 2024. Thank you very much. I'll take questions.
Thanks very much, Katie. Are there any questions from the commission on this? Commissioner Cerullo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Catherine, thank you for the presentation. I have one question, and I have no objection to the renewal. But my recollection, and I don't have my original notes in front of me, but on this property, on the site, there was a small building that I recall a discussion. It looks like, from my recollection, in looking at the sort of the site plan now, it would have been where C, somewhere near C. It was at that portion of the property because I'm familiar with the site. And there was a small, very small building there that there was discussion about, or at least this is my recollection, something could have happened once it got to the council, so we lost sort of the following this through, but that they were going to preserve on the site. And there was discussion about, does it become a restaurant? Does it become some small, it was like a small little brick building from sort of the original time it was built. Now on this site plan and in this presentation, there's no mention of that there. And it looks like where the C building was actually that building. And you did say one of the buildings is being demolished, which definitely, if I recall, was not part of the original presentation, but it might be part of the original approval after it came to us. So I just wonder what the story is there. And did something occur from when it was with us in ULURP that happened after it left us, or it's something I'm just not recalling correctly?
It might be helpful to go to slide 7 quickly, if you could, production. I just want to make sure it's clear what's happening with each of the 2 buildings that are on the site now.
It was the new construction, and then there was a small building on the lot very close to the water.
Right. So that building at the north there, just quickly, the building at the south, you can see kind of in the lower L shape.
Yes.
That's being demolished. That's the steel shed. There were actually pictures of it earlier. That's being demolished. The brick building, it's actually a 2-story building up at the north, continues to be proposed to be part of a kind of quasi-adaptive reuse project for building C. Basically, they're keeping, from my understanding, most of the existing 2 floors as the base of that building and building an additional new 4 floors above that. And that's been the plan.
Okay, I understand.
Since approval.
So at least part of the building is remaining as a sort of reuse of the building is developed. Okay.
Yes.
I didn't remember that actually from the last round, but at least I know it's still part of the development, and it didn't in any way become a demolished building in the plan, or it might have been approved that way once it got to the council, but I just needed the reminding of what had occurred. So it isn't being retained in its existing form. It's being enlarged, but there's part of the structure that's being retained.
Right. And importantly, part of the structure that is being retained, it is being retained and essentially built on top of, but is, as you mentioned, very close to the water. And that's the reason for the very narrow portion of the shore public walkway up at that portion, which was codified in the text amendment because it has been the plan to keep that building with the footprint that it has.
Got it. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Captain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Burney?
Thank you. I have no issue with this request, but I'm just curious to know what would the consequences be if this request were not granted, legally or procedurally, what would actually happen?
So the authorization is to allow for the phasing. And so if there were not a phasing authorization, permitted here, the requirement would be that the entire shore public walkway would have to be constructed before they could, from my understanding, occupy any of the buildings.
Oh, that's interesting. But would they be capable of doing that? Because I assume the phasing has to do with the relationship between the building and the walkway and so on.
Right. I mean, I think it's being sought in part as a kind of financing need for the applicant. And they've proposed. They continue to propose a amount of shore public walkway that is both adjacent to each of the buildings as they open up, and also beyond proportional to the portion of building square footage that's being built out in each phase. So there'll be more shore public walkway with each phase versus the square footage of building that's opened at the same time.
So in other words, we better grant this, right? Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional questions for Katie for this? So if not, I'll ask for an assent of the commission for us to renew this authorization by a show of hands or saying aye. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That's approved.
Okay, the 13th item on our agenda is a post-referral review of a non-ULURP authorization in Queens Community District 5. Our presenter is Luis Garcia Martinez.
Hello. Good afternoon, commissioners. Next slide, please. Good afternoon, commissioners. This is a private application by 1718 Decatur LLC for a zoning authorization pursuant to zoning resolution section 4247 to allow a new residential use in an existing M14D zoning district. The project area and proposed development site are coterminous and consist of lot 26, block 3568, located in Southeast Ridgewood, Queens Community District 5. Ridgewood is situated south of Maspeth and Middle Village, northwest of the Queens Cemetery Belt, including Knollwood and Trinity Cemetery, among others, and northeast of Brooklyn neighborhood, the Brooklyn neighborhood of Bushwick. Next slide, please. The proposed action would facilitate the development of a 3-story, 32 feet tall apartment building with 6 residential units that would contain approximately 7,000 square feet of floor area. The building's street wall would align with the adjacent building to the north and provide a 65-foot rear yard. No parking would be provided, as residential parking is not permitted unless it's authorized by the commission in accordance with zoning resolution section 4428B. Next slide, please. To facilitate the development, the applicant is seeking a zoning authorization pursuant to zoning section zoning resolution section 4247 to allow a new residential use in an existing M14D zoning district. The residential uses are not permitted as of right within M1D districts, but in accordance with section 4247 of the zoning resolution, new residences or enlargements may be permitted in M14D zoning districts by authorization of the City Planning Commission. In authorizing such residential uses, the Commission shall find that the residential uses will not be exposed to adverse impacts from commercial or manufacturing uses, that there are no uses listed in use group 18 within 400 feet of the lot, and that the residential uses will not adversely affect other uses in the district, nor alter the character of the neighborhood. As detailed in the applicant's statement of findings, this application meets the findings per zoning resolution 4247. Next slide, please. Community Board 5 held a meeting on November 10th, 2021, and recommended approval with a vote of 43 votes in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstaining. In their recommendation, Community Board 5 noted that the board have no objections, considering that what is planned should be a significant improvement to the property and the surrounding community. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
I can't remember when I've seen a 43-0 affirmative vote from the community board.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. The 14th item on our agenda is a post-referral review of the non-ULURP authorization in Queens Community District 5, and Luis will present this item as well.
Next slide, please. Good afternoon. This is a private application by 1112 Holdings LLC for zoning authorization pursuant to zoning resolutions section 4247 to allow a new residential use in an existing M14D zoning district. The project area and proposed development site are coterminous and consist of lot 44, block 3542, located in Southeast Ridgewood, Queens Community District 5. Next slide, please. The proposed action would facilitate the development of a new 3-story, 32 feet tall mixed-use building of approximately 9,900 square feet, including 1,200 square feet of commercial floor area on the ground floor and 8,700 square feet of residential floor area with 10 residential dwelling units. The building would be set at the street line and provide a 31-foot rear yard. No commercial parking would be provided, as residential parking is not permitted unless it's authorized by the commission. Next slide, please. To facilitate the development, the applicant is seeking a zoning authorization pursuant to zoning resolution section 4247 to allow a new residential use in an existing M14D zoning district. Residential uses are not permitted as of right within M1D districts, but as described in the previous application, they may be permitted by authorization of the City Planning Commission. As detailed in the applicant's statement of findings, this application meets the findings per zoning resolution 4247. Next slide, please. Community Board 5 held a meeting on November 10th, 2021, and recommended approval with a vote of 43 votes in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstaining. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks again, Luis. Are there questions? Commissioner Goodrich.
My question is, what's on the current land now? Is it another building, or is this building to add on to it, or it would be a completely new building? I might have missed that part.
This is, currently there's an old building there, and it's going to be demolished, and this is going to be a new building.
And the old building that's there is a residential building?
It's a residential building, exactly.
So then in terms of who lives there, what will happen with the tenants?
I would have to come back to you with that.
We can ask the applicant, and then we'll get back to you with that information. Yeah.
How many tenants are there? Like, for example, the number of tenants that are in the existing building, and then the number of in this proposed building of tenants or people that would be able to live in this proposed thing.
My recollection is that the existing building is a smaller building,
Yeah.
but we can get the exact unit count and compare that for you guys.
Yes.
So we're not taking action on this today. These two will be, scheduled for a future vote.
Yep.
But we will get that information. So thank you. Okay.
Sorry, just one more quick question. And the parking lot is also included with the existing building, or is that apart from where the existing building is?
There's no parking lot. Both of the.
Sorry. I thought I heard a proposed parking lot.
Oh no, there's there will be no commercial parking provided because there is no the commercial parking would be provided as residential parking is not permitted unless it's authorized by the commission, but they're not applying for parking.
Not applying for it. Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Luis. And this will be on for future votes.
Yep. Okay, for future votes on January 5th, 2022, staff have prepared reports for 2892 Nostrand Avenue. If there are any further questions on that, I believe staff is here. Okay.
Ryan, good question. Ryan,
yeah.
I had my hand up on that.
Sure.
Any update on the I think it was an R6A request that came in?
Sure. So David, you presented on this at the last review session. David, are you here?
Yes. Hi, thank you. The applicant is still moving forward with the proposed R7A and R6B on different parts of the project site. Previously, I believe at the post-hearing follow-up, I presented a massing model of what the massing would look like under an R6A zoning for what's currently proposed for R7A, as well as changes to that. The applicant is still planning to move forward with the what they proposed, but I'd be happy to correspond with you and share some of that information about what the proposal would look like under an R6A.
If you could.
Sure.
We'll share that.
But
We
David,
will definitely
right under the R6A, what you showed was a building that was a very similar height to the ones that the applicants are actually proposing to build. I think the applicant's proposed building height is 4 or 5 feet taller than what R6A allows. Is that correct?
The maximum height under R6A is 85 feet. Maximum height under the proposed R7A is 95. So they're planning. The applicant's proposing a max height of 93 feet. So, you know, about an 8 foot difference.
It is taller by a story, right? And it results in a loss of how many units if they go to R6A?
Under the calculations we were seeing, the R6A would produce about 41 units total, 10 of which would be affordable, I believe. And then the proposal here is 55 units with 14 affordable. So they'd be losing about 14 total units for affordable units.
Right. So in exchange for 1 story, we would see a loss of 14 units, including 4 affordable units. And you know, we as a department, we believe that the R7A here is appropriate.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Goodrich?
I wanted some clarification on, I'm looking at the agenda and when it says non-ULURP, I need some clarification on what that means. Does it mean that there will be in the future a hearing, or it just doesn't go through any hearing at all?
Most non-ULURP items do not have a hearing. There are exceptions to that. We love our exceptions here, but that's the case. Authorizations, for example, do not typically have hearings nor do certifications, and those are non-ULURP items.
Yeah.
Is it because, like, for example, the community board has already voted on it, and then, no, it just is a different.
Yeah, it's just a different
type of action.
Yeah.
Mhm. That pursuant to the city charter specifying how it's handled in this process.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on for our future votes, we have 2134 Coyle Street. And also and 200 Madison Avenue, which was a landmark designation. I'm going to note that Commissioner Cirillo is recused on this item. And then also scheduled for a decision on Wednesday are Sheldon Avenue and 11 Madison Avenue and 145 Richmond Valley Road. These are Staten Island Special District actions. For post-hearing follow-up, I'll just note that staff have not prepared any post-hearing on this. So if there are any questions on any of these items, please do raise your hand. We have Castle 3, which is 107, 111 East 123rd Street. The East 178th Street demapping. And 9907 Astoria Boulevard commercial overlay, and the 9704 Sutphin Boulevard rezoning. Okay. If there are no further questions, that is the agenda that we had for today. So we can conclude our review session.
No other business, then this hearing is adjourned. See you all Wednesday. Bye-bye.
So
bye.
Take care.
Mhm.